Hey friend, Chris here from WhyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Welcome to day 35 in our Newbie to Ninja series here on the channel and website, where I'll help you go from being a beginner in Logic Pro to become an expert, fully comfortable and capable to get right down to making awesome music in this amazing application. Today, let's explore automation in Logic. Automation allows you to basically program changes of your channel strips, of your instrument controls, plugins, send levels, and so much more so that they change over time throughout your productions. And you can add automation for any track type that you want. To get started with automation, it's really simple. We just go right up to the Show Hide Automation button right above the tracks area and you click. Or you can use the key command A on your Mac's keyboard to show and hide automation view as well. The view of the tracks area will switch to show us, instead of just regions across the grid of the timeline, instead we get this view of automation lanes for each track. By default, the first automation lane for any track type that you can begin working with will be volume, which is tied to the fader of each channel strip. So if we hover our mouse over any of these automation lanes and then click with the pointer tool, our volume automation becomes active. And if we click again anywhere on this line, we add an automation point. And if we click, hold, and drag on that point, we can introduce a change in volume over time for this key stack. So if we solo the key stack and take a listen, and if we listen again, we'll see that ramping down and up on the channel strip of this fader. There you have it. We've now automated the fader for our key stack to go down by about 20 decibels by about bar 2 and then go back up to negative 1.6 right before bar 4. We can continue writing automation across this track lane. Once again, we can just click along the line to introduce different automation points. And if we just click, hold, and drag on the line itself, we also make adjustments. We can customize the curve of our automation by holding Shift and Control. This brings up the automation curve tool. And if we click, hold, and drag either up, we add this sort of steep drop. If we go down, we have a more immediate ramping down. If we drag back up and then go to the left or to the right, we add some pretty interesting curves. Let's take a listen. If we're really pleased with our automation, we can select all these automation points just by clicking, holding, and dragging over our automation points with the pointer tool. And then if I use key command, command, and C, I've now copied this automation. And if we place the playhead further down the track, we can then use key command, command, and V to paste this automation. You can get rid of an automation point at any time just by double clicking on an automation point. Or if we click, hold, and drag over multiple automation points and then press delete on our Mac's keyboard, we delete that selection. And we can also move automation points by clicking, holding, and dragging on the automation point, or making a selection and dragging the selection. I myself really enjoy using the marquee tool with automation. The marquee tool is my command click tool, so I'm going to hold command to bring it up. And if we click, hold, and drag to make a selection, and then click with the pointer tool, we've now created a set of automation points. It looks like it's just 2 points, but in fact, if we click, hold, and drag on the automation line, either up or down, we've in fact created 4 automation points with a single click. And if we switch our mouse tool to that of the pencil tool, and if we then start to draw with the pencil tool, we can quite literally draw in our automation. And if we hold Option while using the pencil tool, you can switch between either stepped or smooth automation drawing. So now we have stepped automation. If I don't hold Option, we switch back to smooth automation drawing. Cool, so we've written some pretty crazy automation here. So let's take a listen and a look to the key stack and how it sounds. Okay, maybe I'm feeling that, but just in case we want to test drive how does this sound before and after, we can bring our playhead right back and we can choose to disable our automation by clicking on this blue button right in the track header. And let's take a listen. If we turn it back on, either using that power button in the track header or on the channel strip, we can take a listen again to our automation written in. So we can check out the before and after side by side of our automation changes. And not only that, but if we are happy with this automation, we like it written as is, but we need to offset our entire lane of automation by a set amount, we just need it a little bit louder or a little bit quieter. Well, we can go right over here to the trim control and make these adjustments. So now I've offset all the automation across the entire track lane by a set amount. If I use Command Z to undo, okay, so we've dropped down by about 3 to 4 dB. So far, we've only been interacting with volume for our key stack. But again, you can automate every single aspect of your tracks and channel strips. By clicking on the automation parameter drop-down menu in the track header, we get a pop-up menu of all the different options that we can automate for our different track types. Again, we're working with volume, but if we hover our mouse over main, we have options for volume, pan, solo, mute, send levels, and even specific controls of individual plugins. If we click on the automation parameter drop-down for our synth bass, we can see even more, such as automating smart controls, and as well as instrument controls. Let me get rid of all this volume automation. I'll set my fader back to 0. And if we select from our dropdown the channel EQ, and if we select the high cut frequency, I can automate the channel EQ to change over time as well. So for example, I'll bring up my marquee tool. I'll make this selection from bar 1 to bar 5. I'll click. I'll drag this down. And I'll get rid of this automation point right here by double clicking. I'll drag it down a little further. And if we bring up the channel EQ, take a look and a listen. And let's get rid of this first automation point as well. So we're starting right at the bottom. Just want to make sure to introduce the filter. Pretty awesome. So we've automated the high cut frequency of the channel EQ to introduce more and more high end as time goes on. And if we switch to that of volume, I can once again make a selection, click with my marquee tool. I'll add a little bit of a volume change. If we take a listen, we've now automated 2 parameters related to our key stack. And we can view both automation lanes side by side or above and below each other just by clicking on this disclosure triangle. There we are. We have our volume automation as well as the channel EQ automation right above and below each other. So if we need to make specific changes based on where each point is, we can do that. And do be aware that you can snap automation either automatically to the grid based on zoom level, just by enabling the active mode. So now if we click, hold, and drag an automation point, our automation is snapping to the grid. Or if we go back to snap, we can set a specific value. So if we now make an adjustment, it's much finer resolution, but if we zoom in, you can see that we're snapping to the grid. And once done, we can disable and set automation points without snapping to the grid specifically. All right, so I'm going to clean up the automation that I've created. I'll hover my mouse in the track header for the channel EQ automation lane, and we get these 2 options to either introduce another automation lane or remove this automation lane from our view. I'll delete this automation for volume. But do take note that that channel EQ high cut frequency automation is still there. It's still in use, even though I removed it from our view in the tracks area. So let's make that selection, get rid of it, and I'll go to the channel EQ to disable the low pass filter. All right. So as you can imagine, there's a ton of power and opportunity when writing automation for your tracks and productions. But I will say it's a little cumbersome having to go to a drop-down menu in the track header each and every time you want to write automation. So I recommend that you go up to Mix in the top menu bar of your Mac, click, and go down to Auto Select Automation Parameter in Read Mode and enable this option. Now, anytime you click on a channel strip control, if we adjust the fader, or go into our EQ and make an adjustment, that particular parameter becomes the focus of automation in the automation lane for that track. So for example, I want to automate a bit of send level to a delay and reverb for the key stack. And because I adjusted the level of the send level, that's now the focus of our automation lane for this track. So check it out. I'll use my marquee tool to make this selection. Click. All right, so we now have automation for the first bars 1 through 4 with the send level set all the way to the bottom. If I now click, hold, and drag on the send level for bars 5 and on, our send level will boost to about -6.9. So then we'll hear reverb and delay after we cross into bar 5. So if we take a listen, pretty awesome. Okay, so everything up until now has been track-based automation, meaning if we move a region by clicking, holding, and dragging, Logic wants to know if we want to move our automation with our region. If we don't move and show automation again by using key command A, there it is. The automation just continues to live exactly from bar 5 and on. But if we undo, click, hold, and drag, and choose to move it, all right, some funny things start to happen, right? And if we delete a region, Logic needs to know if we want to erase the automation data because of this region being deleted. If we don't erase, the automation stays. If we do erase, we can see some changes have occurred again because of deleting this region. So if we get even more specific, let's maybe add that, and let's move this region. Don't move. Okay. If we move this region and do move, cool. And if we delete, don't erase. If we delete and erase. Okay, so we're seeing there's a lot of different contexts related to track-based automation. However, there's also region-based automation where you can write automation to a specific region, not to everything else that's going on across the track. So for example, I have this sort of shouty section that occurs right at bar 3. If we take a listen, okay, so I'm digging this part, but I want it to pan from left to right. And if I decide to copy and paste or move the region, I want that automation to travel with the region. So if we go over here to the track header, and if we click, we can switch between track-based automation and region-based automation. Okay, now if I select my Tremor Shout Hey track here and click on the pan knob, our automation view is now focused in on panning. And if we zoom in, if we click anywhere on the line, we can click, hold, and drag our automation lane. And I'll click again, and then drag all the way to the bottom here to the right. And if we take a listen to this part, sweet, I want to fine tune this a little bit. So let's drag this automation maybe to about there. So we really get a sense that it's starting from the left, and take a listen again. So we're switching in between left to right. So if I click, drag this over, about there. All right, now we have that left to right panning that's going on with this particular section. And if I move this region, the automation just travels with it. There's no pop-up menu asking us what we want to do in the case that we're moving or deleting or anything else. So I can hold Option, click and drag to copy this region. Automation just travels with it with region-based automation. And if we delete, that automation is deleted with the region. While some folks may be more comfortable making a selection using the mouse and the marquee tool and the pencil tool and writing automation that way, other folks may feel more comfortable writing automation by adjusting the control as you're listening to your production. That way you can feel the production as you're writing your automation. Well, thankfully, Logic offers several different modes for writing automation in this manner. We can either click on the automation mode drop-down menu in the track header for a chosen track and channel strip, as well as on the channel strip itself. First, we have read automation mode. With read mode, Logic just plays back your automation. It doesn't offer you the option to write automation as you're listening. With touch, latch, and write, you can write automation as you listen back. So let's select the tight trap kit here. And for this first region, I want to write some automation using the Remix Effects plugin. To do that, let's reduce the view of the plugin. And let's go to the drop-down menu of automation modes. And let's select touch. With touch mode, automation begins the moment that you start to manipulate a control on an instrument, on the channel strip, smart controls, or anywhere else. And the moment you let go of the controller parameter, that control reverts back to its original position. So for example, if I click on the lock buttons for both the filter and the reverb in Remix Effects, I'll just set it to maybe there and there. And if I now press play and start to manipulate these controls, take a listen and a look. And if we expand the view of our automation, you can see every time I let go of the Remix Effects filter cutoff, the filter resonance, the reverb time, that automation parameter returns to its original position that I set using the lock buttons. So the filter cutoff started at a value of 0.54 and ends at that exact same value as well. If we make further adjustments with our automation, you can see no further automation is written when I let go. This is different from latch mode. Whereas we start out the same, the automation stays exactly the way it is until I start to manipulate a control. But when I let go of a control, we'll replace any existing automation afterwards. So if we take a look and a listen, at different moments, I let go of the reverb control so we can see wherever I leave that control, that automation is being written in. If I use Command Z to undo, that was our original automation. This is the new automation. And if we do it one more time, there it is. The automation that came before stays exactly the same. The automation afterwards, though, regardless if I let go of the control, continues to be written. From here, we have write mode. And with write mode, the moment the playhead begins passing over our automation, new automation is written in. So if we set these in the bottom left-hand corners and just watch, you can see that new automation is being written in from the moment that playback begins. And once we stop playback, our automation mode switches from write to touch automatically to ensure that our automation doesn't get immediately written over again the moment we begin playback. And once you're happy with the automation that you've written, then you just want to make sure to set the automation mode to that of read. All right, Logic will now only play back our automation, but if I adjust the control, I don't accidentally write any new automation to these lanes. So I'm trying to manipulate the controls, but that's not what read-mode is for. It's just to play back what we've written. So that leaves us left with trim and relative automation modes. If we go down to our automation mode menu, we have these two other options for trim as well as relative. With trim, we're able to offset the existing automation data, meaning if we go to perhaps our Synth E base, and let's close this view, and let's just write a little bit of volume automation for our base. Let's take a listen and a look. Right, so I've adjusted the volume for the bass. It goes down and then it goes back up gently. If we now set the mode for our automation to that of trim, we can start to offset these volume changes. So let's zoom in and let's take a look and a listen as I adjust. So what I've done is I've adjusted the existing automation by a set amount using trim mode. If we undo using Command Z, and then redo using Shift Command and Z, we can see that most of this automation data has been moved up. I haven't written completely new data. I've just offset the existing data by a certain amount. You can use trim automation writing with both touch and latch, but not with write mode. Okay, so we've now written this volume automation for our bass, but perhaps we want to add a second layer of automation to fade in or fade out the bass. That's where relative mode comes in. It's quite literally a second layer of automation that you can write for volume, pan, and your sends. And we could use relative mode with any of the writing modes, as noted by the R right before touch, latch, and write. Cool, so let's select touch, set the playhead back to the beginning, and I'm going to adjust the volume over time. Check it out. And because again, touch goes right back to where we started, is set to -24. I'm just going to select this automation line and bring it all the way up. And there we have it. We now have volume automation for a general leveling of our bass. And then we have the second layer of volume automation to fade in or ramp up the bass. And there you have it. Everything worth knowing when it comes to automation in Logic Pro. Thanks so much, and I'll see you for more tomorrow in our Newbie to Ninja series. Take care.